You thought it was something simple, something familiar, something private. But lately it feels different. Quicker, emptier, less satisfying. You're not broken. You're not alone. And you're certain not too old to feel real pleasure again. I'm Dr. James. And after working with older men for over 30 years, I've seen one truth again and again. Most men over 60 carry the same outdated habits into one of the most personal parts of life, masturbation. It's not about shame. It's about awareness. And today, I want to show you 7 silent mistakes that could be dulling your sensitivity, shortening your pleasure, or quietly hurting your confidence without you even knowing it. These aren't judgments. They're insights. And if you're ready to turn a private habit into something healing, grounding, and even empowering, this might be the video that changes how you see yourself. Let's begin. The first mistake is one I rarely hear anyone talk about, and yet it's incredibly common. Mistake 1, rushing through the act like it's a task, not a ritual. This usually begins as a leftover habit from younger years. Quick, discreet, often with a sense of urgency or even guilt. Back then, you might have been hiding from parents, roommates, or partners. It made sense. But what happens when that pattern becomes a script that your body repeats for decades? What happens when your nervous system only knows speed, tension, and release, but not presence? Here's what I've seen. Over time, this habitual rush begins to flatten the experience. It trains the brain and body to associate touch with tension, not exploration. The hands become mechanical. The breath becomes shallow. And eventually, the pleasure becomes muted, reliable, maybe, but not rich. And for older men, this rush pattern has a second, more silent consequence. It reinforces the idea that intimacy should be over quickly, that your body doesn't deserve time, that slowness is a luxury you can no longer afford. But that is false. In fact, the older body thrives in slowness, in deep breath, in softness, in rhythm. When you slow the process down, not just physically, but mentally, you shift from release to presence. You shift from numbness to sensitivity, and your body begins to respond differently. One man I worked with, Robert, 68, told me that the first time he set aside a full 15 minutes just to explore touch without a goal, he cried. Not because it was sad, but because he realized how long it had been since he touched himself with care, not criticism. That is the first correction. Slow down, not for performance, not to last longer, but because time is no longer your enemy. It's your ally, and when you give yourself more of it, the body remembers how to feel. Now, let's talk about the second silent mistake, one that many men fall into without even noticing. Mistake 2, using too much pressure for too long. Here's the reality. As sensitivity begins to fade with age, especially in the glands and shaft, many men instinctively begin to increase pressure, tighter grip, more friction, more force. And while it may seem like a logical solution, it creates a dangerous cycle. Why? Because overstimulation of nerve endings through high-pressure techniques can actually dull sensation over time. The body begins to expect that pressure to feel anything at all, and softer forms of touch, like a partner's hand, or even your own touch with less force, no longer register as pleasure. It becomes a kind of numbness. Not total, but enough to make closeness feel disappointing or worse, irrelevant. The irony is that in trying to chase sensation, you end up training your body to ignore it. So what's the solution? You retrain your sensitivity. Gently, with patience. Start by adjusting your technique. Less force, more variation. Explore areas around the genitals that respond to lighter touch. The inner thighs, the lower belly, the perineum. Use both hands. Use breath. Use time. In some cases, switching to a water-based lubricant that mimics natural moisture can help reawaken tactile response. Or you might try using a silk cloth or even a warm, damp towel, not for novelty, but for softness, for presence, for change. This is not about being less masculine. It's about becoming more attuned, more capable, more awake in your skin. And yes, it might feel strange at first, slower, less urgent, but if you stay with it, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop chasing climax and start enjoying contact. Your body becomes more responsive, Your pleasure deepens, not in intensity, but in texture, in warmth, in satisfaction. Because pleasure after 60 isn't about returning to how things were. It's about discovering how things can feel now, deeper, slower, fuller. In the next section, we'll look at the third and fourth mistakes, both tied to what you're watching and how your posture affects blood flow and nervous system signals. But for now, ask yourself this. When was the last time you slowed down enough to notice how your own body likes to be touched today, not 20 years ago? That awareness is not trivial. It's the beginning of a return, not to youth, but to presence. You've slowed down. You've eased the pressure. Maybe for the first time in years, you've begun to explore your body not as a machine, but as a landscape. And yet, something still feels off. That's where we come to the third silent mistake, one that rarely gets discussed, but might be quietly training your body to disengage from real sensation. Mistake 3, relying too much on visual stimulation, especially artificial content. Let me be clear. There's no shame in using visual aids. It's natural. It's common. But here's what most men don't realize. Your brain forms neural associations over time. And when you consistently rely on fast-paced, extreme visual content, like modern pornography, you begin to condition your arousal to that environment. Your brain starts saying, "This is what turns me on. Nothing else will." That means touch alone becomes less effective. Real connection becomes less satisfying. And worst of all, you start to feel like your own body is unresponsive, when really it's just been trained to respond only to a screen. You're not the problem, but your brain has been rewired. And here's the catch. The more visual intensity you consume, the more stimulation you need next time. It's not that you enjoy it more. It's that your nervous system is chasing novelty to feel something at all. So how do we fix this? By reintroducing imagination, by stepping away from screens and back into your own mind. That doesn't mean suppressing desire. It means reclaiming authorship of it. Try closing your eyes. Let memory come back. Think of moments, not necessarily explicit, but emotionally rich, sensual, real, moments that made you feel alive, not just aroused. It may feel awkward at first. Your mind might wander. That's normal. But what you're doing is powerful. You're restoring the link between your inner world and your physical body. Over time, this softens the overstimulation loop. It brings sensitivity back. It brings presence back. And most importantly, it gives you back the ability to feel without needing an external image to trigger it. This practice doesn't erase the past, but it clears space for a new kind of connection, one rooted in memory, breath, and intimacy with yourself. Now let's move to the fourth mistake, one so subtle, most people never notice it until the symptoms appear. Mistake 4, ignoring how posture and tension affect blood flow and sensation. Here's what we often forget. Arousal is not just about stimulation. It's about circulation, about nervous system signals, about how your whole body participates in the experience, not just one part. And posture matters a lot. Many older men masturbate while hunched over, sitting in low chairs, or even lie in awkward positions that restrict lower body blood flow. Over time, this creates micro tensions in the hips, the lower back, the pelvic floor. You may not feel it as pain, but your body registers it as constriction. And constriction means less sensitivity, less blood reaching where it needs to go, less responsiveness from your genitals. More work, less reward. There's also a deeper layer here. When your spine is compressed, when your chest is collapsed, your breath becomes shallow. And shallow breath is a signal of stress, not safety. Your body interprets this as urgency. It tenses up. It shifts from relax and enjoy to hurry and finish. Sound familiar? So what's the correction? Begin with awareness. Where are you sitting? How are you breathing? Is your pelvis supported? Are your shoulders relaxed? Try this. Next time you're alone, choose a space that allows you to sit or recline with your back fully supported. Elevate your hips slightly with a pillow. Let your knees fall open. Place one hand on your chest, the other on your belly. Breathe in not fast, not forced, just full. Then, before touching yourself, wait until your shoulders drop, until your belly softens. until your breath becomes quiet. This is not a ritual for performance. It's a ritual for readiness. You're telling your nervous system, I'm safe. I'm present. I don't need to rush. And when your body hears that message, it responds. The blood flows more easily. The touch feels more vivid. The mind stops wandering. It may sound simple, but posture, breath, and muscle tension are three of the most powerful but overlooked factors in male pleasure. I've seen men in their 70s rediscover sensation they thought was gone forever, not because of a new pill, but because they finally adjusted how they sat, how they breathed, how they gave their body permission to relax before asking it to perform. In the next section, we'll cover mistakes 5 and 6, both tied to how you treat yourself after the act, and what it tells your body about shame, sleep, and self-trust. But for now, I invite you to try this. Sit up, breathe deep, be kind to your posture, because the way you hold yourself is the way your body will learn to hold pleasure. You've adjusted your pace. You've softened your grip. You've reconsidered what you feed your mind and how you hold your body. But there's one more dimension that too many men ignore. It's what happens after. Because what you do in the minutes that follow this most private act tells your body something powerful. Something about who you believe you are and whether you are safe in your own skin. That brings us to the 5th silent mistake. Mistake 5, getting up too quickly after climax, without giving your nervous system time to settle. Most men, especially those raised in silence around intimacy, have developed a kind of unspoken ritual. The moment it's over, they move, they clean, they dress, they check their phone, they stand, walk, even distract themselves, almost as if to erase what just happened. And yet, in those first few minutes, your body is in one of its most open, most receptive states. Your nervous system is shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Your heart is slowing. Your breath is deepening. Your mind is briefly still. This is a moment of profound recalibration. But when you rush, when you move as if nothing meaningful occurred, you interrupt that recalibration. You send the body a subtle message. This wasn't important. This was something to hide. Over time, this trains the body to compress the experience, to treat it like a mechanical release rather than a healing cycle. But what if you didn't rush? What if, instead, you stayed exactly where you were, not to make it last or to overanalyze, but just to be present with the sensations, the heartbeat, the breath, the stillness, that space, those minutes, there where restoration happens, where integration begins. And for older men especially, men whose days are often filled with tension, structure, responsibility, this may be the only time the nervous system truly rests. That rest is not weakness. It is repair. So try this. Next time, give yourself 5 full minutes afterward. No movement, no phone, just warmth, breath, and if possible, a hand resting over your chest or belly, not to stimulate, but to remind you, this is still your body, and it still deserves gentleness. Which brings us to mistake number 6, perhaps the most silent, but also the most damaging. Mistake 6, judging yourself afterward, even quietly. This mistake doesn't show up on your face. It lives in the background of your thoughts. It might sound like, that was stupid. Why do I still do this at my age? I should have more control. This is pathetic. Sometimes you don't even say the words. You just feel the undertone. Regret, shame, a subtle distancing from yourself. This is one of the cruelties of conditioning. We've been taught for decades that self-pleasure is something childish, dirty, or desperate, that it's a failure of connection rather than an expression of it. And yet, for many older men, it is one of the only moments in which they truly inhabit their own body. One of the only places where they feel something more than numbness. One of the only ways they remain connected to their desire, their breath, their touch. To judge that moment is to judge the one part of life that might still be alive and honest. But here's the truth. The body doesn't care about your shame. It listens only to your attention, your breath, your hands, your presence. It responds not to guilt, but to kindness. So what if you stopped criticizing? What if you allowed yourself to say, even silently, that was good? Not perfect, Not impressive. Just good. Good because it brought you back. Because it made you feel. Because it reminded you that you're still here. There's no age limit on touch. No expiration date on softness. No shame in needing yourself. The body thrives when it is received with compassion, especially after pleasure, especially when the muscles are soft and the mind is open. That is the moment to whisper, not scold, to breathe, not rush, to accept, not critique. And if that feels hard at first, good. That means it matters. You are not selfish for giving yourself pleasure. You are not weak for needing to connect. You are not immature for touching yourself. You are human, and your humanity did not end when your hair turned gray or your skin began to change. Your humanity lives in your presence. In the next and final block, we'll look at the 7th mistake, the one that hides in plain sight, forgetting that your erotic self is still evolving and trying to repeat old scripts instead of exploring new forms of pleasure. But for now, I ask only this. After the next time you touch yourself, do not move too fast. Do not speak unkindly. Do not walk away as if nothing meaningful happened. Instead, stay. Let your body feel accepted. Let your nervous system complete the experience. And above all, let your heart know, this is not shameful. This is sacred. You've listened. You've slowed down. You've breathed deeper. You've touched yourself not as a stranger, but as someone returning home. And yet, for some men, even after these changes, something still feels incomplete, as if something vital is missing, but you can't quite name it. That brings us to the 7th and final mistake. Mistake 7. Try to repeat old scripts instead of exploring new forms of pleasure. Let me explain. When you were younger, you likely discovered what worked quickly. A pattern, a rhythm, a fantasy, a position, a finish. You returned to it often, not because it was the only way, but because it worked. It gave you certainty. It gave you results. But over time, that script became fixed, familiar, automatic. And now, years, perhaps decades later, you may still be following that same script, same touch, same pace, same outcome. But your body has changed. Your mind has changed. Your needs have changed. And yet, the script hasn't. This is not failure. It's habit. But it may also be holding you back from discovering what pleasure can become at this stage of life. You see, the erotic self does not retire. It evolves. And if you're still touching yourself the same way you did at 35, or even 55, you may be missing out on the richness that awaits you now. A deeper sensitivity, a slower crescendo, a pleasure that is less about climax and more about connection. What does that evolution look like? Sometimes it means shifting focus away from genitals alone, exploring the whole body, chest, neck, ears, hands, thighs, areas that hold emotion, tension, and untapped pleasure, areas that may respond now in ways they never did before. Sometimes it means letting go of the goal entirely, touching not to finish, but to feel, breathing not to build arousal, but to circulate it, sitting in sensation without asking it to go anywhere. And sometimes evolution means introducing something new, a different kind of movement, a new environment, a sound, a scent, a texture, something that reawakens your curiosity, not just your arousal. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of yourself, more tuned in, more present, more responsive to what your body wants now, not what it used to settle for. I once worked with a man named David, 72. He had followed the same intimate pattern for over 40 years. Same room, same hand, same pace, same silence. He wasn't unhappy, but he was numb. I asked him one simple question. What would happen if you made it different, not better, just different? He thought about it. The next week, he came back and told me he lit a candle, put on music, sat in a chair instead of lying down, used his left hand, slowed down, and didn't finish. Just breathed, touched, felt. He said, it was the first time I felt like I was making love to myself instead of just getting it over with. That shift wasn't about performance. It was about permission. Permission to explore, to change, to evolve without shame. Because that's what we're really talking about here. Not technique, not dysfunction, but evolution. The body evolves. The nervous system evolves. Pleasure evolves. And the greatest mistake we can make is pretending that it doesn't. So here, at the end of this journey, I invite you to ask, what else might be possible? What other parts of me are waiting to be touched, to be noticed, to be invited into the experience? Because this is not about fixing what's broken. It's about listening to what's still alive. And a lot is still alive. The skin remembers. The breath responds. The blood still moves. Your body, even now, is offering you a conversation, not a command, not a performance, but a quiet conversation. One you get to have as often as you like, on your own terms, without judgment, without apology, without the weight of yesterday. So the next time you feel the urge, not just in your body, but in your heart, don't rush, don't repeat, don't shrink. Instead, explore, touch with new hands, breathe with new rhythm, sit in the silence as if it were sacred. Because it is, you are not too old, you are not too late. You are simply being invited back to your body, back to your breath, back to a pleasure that has always belonged to you. And this time, you don't have to hide it. You only have to honor it.